So how have you been, man? It's been a while.
Pretty pretty good. Can't complain.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's been a few years since we did your mentorship, but I'm trying to remember. There was a deal we were looking at. It was for a commercial deal for Anita. She wanted to open a salon for her business.
Yep.
If you remember details of that, maybe kind of just talk about that deal.
Well, one of the ones we were at ended up like we tried talking to the city about the zoning change and all that, and
Yeah.
it ended up bought by somebody else because they never changed the zoning. And it was a nice building, but the one we ended up with, we didn't have to mess with the zoning or anything. We just had to rehab it, and she's about got it full now. I mean, people come and go, but the you know how it was. The big concern for her was being in control of her own space,
Yeah.
and it kind of nice. If you want the temperature to be 70, you don't have to ask anybody. It's yours. So
That's true.
she's and I'm sure I've told you, but we've got a second building, one up in Springdale.
Okay.
So it's a little more money went into that one, but it is a nicer area. I mean, we got a Starbucks three doors down, so
Nice.
that's kind of nice.
Yeah. I forget what you were doing before we met. Like you, when you were working, did you have a job doing
Uh,
something?
yeah, I was in the oil field, but when you met me, I'd been laid off.
Okay.
So yeah, I was probably laid off, well, maybe 6 months to a year when I met you
Okay.
for that first class.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was in the oil field for 8 years in sales. So
Okay. It was something you said to me. You came to the class twice, and the second time you said something about I finally did it and it worked, or I forget exactly how you worded it, but I thought that was kind
yeah,
of a funny story. Yeah.
yeah. Well, it's the same or similar material, and I heard it the first time, and I'd heard other people say it. It just didn't mean anything, and then I went back through the class, and it was really over, essentially getting the bank to pay for the property, because not only do I not have a job now, saving up 20% ain't happening. And like the property that I did that on, I did not get the property for $0, but instead of paying like 15 grand, I only had to pay 1,000. And then I was like, holy crap, this is what these guys have been talking about this whole time. And then it just went nuts from there because I was able to buy so much faster.
Yeah. So that was your first deal, the one for 1,000?
No, it was the first deal after going to the classes.
Gotcha. Okay.
After because when I was in the oil field, I made six figures, and in 8 years I bought five properties.
Gotcha.
But I'm good at saving money, but still, it takes time, even
Take
if you make
forever.
good
Yeah.
money. And then, oh, it may have been a year and a half, and I added about 83 doors. So we've sold some since. The ones we liked, we kept. But yeah, once you're able to buy properties without putting money down, it's a lot easier to buy.
Yeah. I know you texted me one time, said something about your net worth had just reached $1 million. And I said, welcome to the club. I forget when that was or how long
Well,
did it take you to get there?
it I don't think it took. Maybe it was under a year,
Under a year. Okay.
and I didn't know it. I'd applied for a loan at a bank that I wasn't familiar with, and they asked me for all my stuff, balance sheet and whatnot. And he texted me later that night, and he's like, "Well, you look pretty good," and he's like, was saying like, "No offense, but you sure don't dress like a millionaire." And I'm like, "I'm not." And he's like, "According to the info you sent me, you are." And I'm arguing with him, and he finally sent me all the stuff, and I double checked. I went down the list and up the list, and it was hurting my head because I'm like, "There, like, that can't be possible. Like, it is just a blink of an eye." And then I'm like, "Well, shoot, like, I've been wrong before. It's kind of nice." And when I told my wife, she argued with me the same thing, and I had to show her the paperwork. I'm like, "No, it's right here." So it was weird, you know.
Call it accidental millionaire, huh?
Yeah, I like, if he wouldn't have said nothing, how long before the next banker would have said something, and we would have been at two. And I was like,
Yeah.
no, 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 crazy.
That's funny because that similar thing happened to me when Ron came out to work with me. He said, what's your goals? What do you want to do? And I said, oh, I used to go to these seminars. These guys are all millionaires, and I want to be like them,
Yeah,
just talk on stage and travel and buy stuff, and not have to do any work, because your money's coming in, your cash flow. He said, where are you with that? I said, I don't know. I've been so busy. I haven't had a chance to look at it. So that night I went through my spreadsheet and my net worth had increased like $2 million in like 5 months. And I was like,
yeah,
sit there like, I don't feel any different. How come these guys look like they're so
yeah,
excited and everything fired up about being a millionaire? So I got more work to do now than I ever did.
yeah.
It's funny. Did
Been slow. I told you before, the house was way over budget, way past time. So a lot of the money has gone into that.
Yeah,
But we've got about 5 grand left to put into it, and then we'll be done with that, and we'll refi.
nice.
And then, and at the same time, the market has really shifted. Like, everything was just going for. I mean, things that were 100 grand are now 250 grand, and the rent hasn't gone up that much. And everyone got excited. And, you go to an auction, and the bids would just keep rising, keep rising. And I'm like, I want that property, but I'm like, you guys ain't going to make any money. Like, okay, it might appreciate, but it might not. And it's like, until then, you're losing money every month.
Yeah.
So the last 2 years, it's kind of bit like I bought a couple things, but not a ton. And everyone is always worried. They're like, oh, well, that's bad. And I'm like, well, I mean, it's not good, but I've kind of enjoyed it. I mean, because like I've had, health issues, my knee, my groin, my hip, my neck. And so instead of being on a computer screen or driving around looking at properties, I'd be at home on a yoga mat, working out, rehabbing my body. And, because what's worse, you end up with all the money you ever wanted, and now your body's not working. So the last 2 years has been a great time for me to recover.
Yeah.
And I ain't gonna lie, the last couple months has been busy again. So I've definitely missed it, but I needed my body to be working too. So it worked out perfectly.
Yeah. That's
I
good.
mean,
You got to be healthy mentally too, mental,
oh
physical,
yeah. I
relationship.
mean,
That's all important.
yeah, money's not that important. You gotta have a good balance of everything. And
Yeah.
the money and the net worth and the properties kept rising, but my health was still down here. And yeah, it was perfect time break for me. I mean,
Yeah. It's all
you
good.
know, everyone thinks you make less money. But it's like, no, I already own the property. I'm just
Yeah.
not adding anything. And I got a few things, but it wasn't. I mean, I got some land at a pretty good cost, but the housing just and the commercial pretty much came to a standstill for a while. But I mean, we're under contract for property right now, so it's swinging back up.
Job. Well, do you primarily focus on buy and hold or commercial or single family or flips, or what do you do?
Buy and hold for almost everything. I mean, like we've flipped a couple, in the last 2 years, and we're flipping one now. But I like long term rentals, commercial and residential. But I want to get um, more into land flipping, so I'm kind of leaning towards that. But a good residential come up for flip, yeah, it's on.
Yeah.
The rates are kind of hard now to get a property to cash flow long term.
Yeah.
I mean, I just refied one at 8.5%, and it's like, I mean, I kept it,
Yeah.
but I got it at a really good deal 4 years ago.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. I remember talking to this guy at an event where Robert Kiyosaki was speaking, and we were like waiting out ahead of time. This was back right after the crash, 2009, 2010, right around there. And he was bashing real estate, and Kiyosaki's event was more about investing in gold. It wasn't necessarily just real estate, stocks, he does everything. So this guy was bashing real estate. And I'm like, dude, I'm a full-time real estate investor. I'm not hurting at all. And he goes, you're an effing liar. I'm like, why would you call me that? Like, did you know who I am? And he said, you can't tell me that your real estate has uh, gone up in value. I said, well, if I'm buying and holding, the value of the real estate's irrelevant. It's the income on the property because I bought it for cash flow. And right
Yep.
now, the way everything's going, I have more tenants. My vacancy rates are down. My rents are up. I'm making more money than I ever have. And
Yeah.
the guy shut up basically. But there's so many different ways to invest. Everybody thinks that maybe there's only one way to do it or that they're used to it. And when the market changes, kind of like it is now, there's going to be a lot of opportunities. So even though the interest rates are up and the people are paying too much for the properties, it's just a matter of time you wait it out. And
Oh
it's
yeah.
going to be flooding here pretty soon. We talked to a few people,
Well,
same thing.
I remember you telling me that story, and I can't tell you how many people I ran into that it was kind of the same thing, except
Yeah.
they never shut up. They just kept telling me I'm wrong. Real estate doesn't work like that. Banking doesn't work like that. Money doesn't. And I'm like, man, you asked me, and how many properties do you own? Oh, zero.
Zero there. Yeah.
Tell me more. And I'm finally getting to the point where they tell me I'm wrong, and I'm like, yeah, you're right. I don't
Yeah.
know what I was thinking. Sorry. And you get the looks from people like, oh, well, yeah, that guy proved his point. Wes, shut up. And I'm like, yeah, don't ask me. I don't know what I was thinking. I'll just shut up next time. I'm, I've been too stupid that I'll argue with those people. And now it's like, all right, man, you win,
Yeah.
because I'm not going to change your mind. You're sure the best way to make money is with a job, and you can't make money in real estate. And I just gave up. I'm going to spend my time and energy on something else.
Yeah. It's always funny how what people think, even though they don't have any experience with it. It's like a form
No,
of opinion right off the bat. It's funny. I want to
but
see if
yeah, if I've ran into so many people in the last few years through that, I could have. I imagine you probably ran into more. I'm still shocked every time it happens. Like, wow, there's more of you. Like, okay.
Well, I had a guy in Texas. It was a class in Dallas, and he came in halfway through the introductions. He really didn't hear my background or anything. And he starts talking. He goes, "Nope, that don't work here." I'm like, "Who said that?" And he's like, "Yep, that doesn't stuff doesn't work here." I said, "Yeah." I said, "I've done dozens of mentorships here. I know it works here." "Nope, doesn't." And I'm laughing. I said, "So, what's your background?" He's a contractor, builds new buildings, new houses. And I said, "Okay. And how many rehabs have you done?" "Well, I haven't done any rehabs." I said, "Well, then that's why. You're looking at brand new, you're looking at construction permits, you're required to have everything up to code. Sometimes you get away with stuff if it's a rehab,
Oh yeah.
things are grandfathered in, that type of stuff." And no. And I said, "Well, you've done zero deals and you've only done new builds, and I've got over 1,000 deals under my belt. So unless whenever you catch up to me, then I'll listen to what you got to say." Kind of people were laughing, they kind of shut him up. But it's like I don't try to be belligerent with people, but when they get rude and ignorant about stuff, you have to just shut them up. But it's funny how people do one thing and then they think that that's the only way to do it. There's so many different ways to do deals and put stuff together and make money. It's just unreasonable for somebody to think that they know it all. It's
Well,
fun.
and then they're so sure they have that answer, and
Yeah,
like I have my realtor's license. I just rarely use it. Anytime a realtor calls, and I have to tell them I'm a realtor, and they think the phone call's over. I'm like, no, no, no. You can send me any deal you want. You can get
yeah,
both sides. But I was like, the key word, it has to be a deal. And for a while, it was just all the time. They're like, oh, well, there are no deals in today's market. I'm like, dude, I'm under contract right now. Like,
yeah,
I'm not trying. Like I said, the last 2 years, I've been enjoying the break. Deals still came my way. I wasn't looking for them, and one of them, I was in Kansas in a tree stand, freezing my butt off, whitetail hunting, and a buddy sent me a text. He's like, "Dude, check your email." He's like, "We have to do this one," and I'm signing e-signs for the property for a flip in the middle of the hunting season, and deer are probably walking by, but I'd rather have the property.
yeah,
I- But they're always there. There
yeah,
may not be. There's always something.
yeah. And it's awareness too. People come to you when they know that you buy stuff and you talk with them, communicate, you get around that stuff. So she sent me an email like, "Yeah, I don't know what to do. Here's how he responded." And what I explained to her was, you got to make a bunch of offers lower than what they're asking. And he basically said, "Well, that stuff doesn't work here. There's multiple offers on this area that I told you that you should be investing in. And to get the discount you want, if they were at that price, I would buy them myself."
Yeah,
So I'm like, "Okay, they're not priced at that. You have to make the offer to get the deal. Even though they're asking 100%, if you're offering 60 cents on a dollar, 100 of them, and one of them says yes, you got a deal. So the mindset of the people that's out there that are professionals, are supposed to know how to do this, have a different way of doing things than what we do. Anyways, that's real estate agents. Most of the ones I've met, I've trained a lot of them, and some of the students I have that are real estate agents have learned a lot. And sometimes they have a challenge because they got to deal with listing agents.
oh yeah.
So they don't want them to do these different things, but they get out on their own, they're okay.
And I've had people that whether it's a real estate agent or a buyer, they don't want to come off as cheap.
Yeah,
It's like if you're asking 200 grand, I'm like, well, dude, it doesn't make money at that. Offer 150, and they're like, that's way too low. I'm like, well, then the answer is no. Move
yeah,
on.
yeah.
But you never know what kind of situation that guy is in,
That's right.
how
You're
ready
right.
they are. I mean,
Yeah,
I've made offers on stuff when I was busy, and I'm like, I really don't want another property, so I'll just offer half what they're asking.
yeah,
And then like, hey, are you good to close on this? I'm like, oh crap! Like, I was just trying to be nice by sending an offer, but now I actually have to find a way to get this deal done. And
yeah,
but like you said, most of them are going to be a no anyway.
yeah.
And if the market's that busy, then let it be busy. It'll change. But if you don't make it, I don't know. One thing, like I said, I do miss being busy, but it's slowly coming back to where, like this morning, I mean, checking emails, waiting on this, waiting on that. But when I think of the job I used to have, I made really good money. But if you look at what I do now, I make so much more per hour than I ever did with that job. I mean, because somebody's like, "Oh, well, I make a couple hundred grand a year," and I'm like, "Yeah, you're busy." It's like if I make a couple hundred grand a year, I'm not doing half what you are.
Yep.
I mean, and it just how much time for the return did you put in?
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, busy's fun, but you know how it is. At some point, you got to have a balance. I like having free time.
Yeah.
You know, if I want to go hunting or fishing or just drink coffee, eat lunch,
Yeah.
I and I wake up early. I go to bed at a regular time, but I want to do what I want to do.
That's right.
And I got buddies that, hey, we ought to hang out. I'm like, well, what are you doing Monday morning? And they're like, well, I'm going to work. I'm like, oh well, Sorry, Saturday and Sunday is busy.
Yeah.
It's hard to have friends that don't have time.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's true. I mean, our friends group of friends has changed drastically over the years. Most of my friends live in a different city. Like you do. People I meet, a lot of the mentors or even students, became friends in different markets, and it's funny. I talk to them more than I do old friends. They like you said, they have jobs or they're retiring now, and they're so old and beat up they don't want to do anything anymore.
yep.
It's funny.
And that was a big change for us because your circle of friends will change, and whether it's out of bitterness or just like-mindedness, it's going to change. But I remember everyone was just busy, and I'm like, man, you never have time for anything. I mean, and there's times I'm busy too, but I like what I do.
Yeah. Well, at least you control your own schedule. If you want to do something, you can.
Well, and a buddy, I've told you about him before, but him and I were talking to an old college friend of his that was wanting to get into real estate, and he's an IT guy, and he makes, 6 figures. He swore up and down how much he loved his job. And I was like, well, you work 5 days a week? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, so if you won the lottery tonight, are you quitting tomorrow? And he's like, well, yeah. And I looked at my buddy Theo, and I'm like, if you won the lottery tomorrow or today, what are you doing tomorrow? And he's like, I'm working. He's like, I've got more capital, I've got less restrictions. He's like, I'm going to go nuts. I've got more money to invest. And you know how it is. If you really love what you do, you'll never work.
Yep. Yep. It's always fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll have time to play with the newborn here too.
Yeah. Anita's kind of made one or two comments about that, like, oh, well, somebody's going to be, and it's like, well, and in all fairness, I kind of planned on it anyway. I
Yeah.
mean, because as much fun as free time is when all your friends are busy, and like you said, my friends that have time usually don't live local.
Yep.
So it's like there's times I'm like, I don't think it's gonna. I think it'll be fun. Everyone talks about how much of a stress it'll be, and I think, I think we're in a better place to enjoy it now. So,
Yeah. I mean, it's a change because you have to do different things. A baby, they're
oh
at
yeah,
different needs. But when they get a little older, like my grandkids now, 1 and 2 and 3 years old, it's like, oh man, just playing with them, just watching them grow. It's different.
yeah. But being in the position to enjoy it. I mean,
Yeah.
because you
Yep.
know, I feel like people, they get excited about the baby, but they stress out more than anything. And I don't want to feel that. I mean, when I was in the oil field, if we would have had a kid, I wouldn't have been there for it.
Yeah,
I
that would be
mean,
tough. Yeah.
I was gone a lot. And everyone thinks, they're like, oh, I work all the time. And I'm like, do you sleep in your own bed? I mean, there's times I'd be gone for a solid month.
Yeah.
And it just not, I would be in the state or the country sometimes. I mean, I was gone all the time.
Wow.
And I didn't realize how much I hated it until I got laid off.
Yeah.
They tried to hire me back, and I'm like, nah, I like being home. Shouldn't have sent me home in the first place.
Wow.